I'm sure we are going to think twice before we are going to use any product from now. Now I would like to invite Mr. Abhijit Sinha. He has recently graduated from college, and after that he has founded entrepreneurship. He has founded an enterprise. He's working for education for development. He's working with the villagers and trying to help society by learning, and so he will be explaining how he's doing and what he's doing. Abhijit, all yours.
Am I audible? Okay. Hi guys. In the time that the computer is set up and all of that, I'll just give you a little bit of context towards, why I'm doing whatever it is that I'm doing. So I was born and brought up in Mumbai. Mumbai being this weird city of dreams where everybody, nobody restricts your thoughts as much. I also wanted to do a lot of things. Like all the way growing up, I was interested in different things from time to time, and I felt that okay, once I reach college, I'll probably get the opportunity to pursue whatever it is I love at that point of time. And then I reached college, and that never happened. The 4 years of college studying software at an engineering college in Tamil Nadu, it just felt that my dreams or my expectations that I came into the college with were being killed very methodically each second. And I couldn't believe it, that there's 3,500 students who joined with me in the same college. It's a pretty good college, so you have, it's not stupid people joining the college anyways. And the college is doing that to you. For the 3.5 years of college, I was doing nothing, practically nothing in technology. And then I happened to meet this professor who had come down from MIT and was holding an independent lab in the college. And I started doing projects with him. At the time, I was into artificial intelligence, and I was doing, I just started with him, started talking to him, and I understood that he was into making social solutions for problems that people generally think are either too difficult or are for somebody else to solve. And then I started doing hackathons, and I started coming up with solutions myself, which felt great. Like that was something that I had not learned in college, and I was now able to do. After winning all these hackathons and after meeting lots and lots of people and staying in Bangalore for about a year and a half, I figured that I am still just one person. I was lucky to have met this dude from MIT, but not everybody else is, and not everybody gets the opportunity to get inspired in such a deep way. And so I felt, what is wrong? Where are we missing things here? And education seemed to be the one that was destroying mostly all of your entrepreneurial skills that you probably have naturally. So I'll start with the presentation of this organization called E4D, or Education for Development. Myself, the professor from MIT, and another friend. And then I quit my job at that point of time, and I shifted to this village called Banjarpalya, on the outskirts of Bangalore, on the way to Kanakpura. And I was there, and I was with an organization called Jaga. And luckily, they gave me free space to use. They gave me a few computers to use. And they said, do whatever the hell you want to do with it. And then I started thinking that how can I get these computers interact with the villagers and vice versa. The villagers were people who did not understand my language, and I did not understand theirs. And it was probably the first time for most of them to actually see a computer and use it. So we started the Banjarpalya Makerspace, but about a year back in February. So before I get into what a makerspace is, some things that I want to talk about the traditional learning systems. Um, Traditional learning systems rely very, very strongly on information delivery, in that you have to wait for a teacher to tell you things, and then you have to learn whatever she or he is giving to you, and probably whatever you retain is whatever the knowledge that you get. There's no intrinsic motivation towards learning whatever you are learning. There's no goals in mind. You're just learning because somebody has told you to. It's non-participative. It's probably mostly unidirectional. And it's no fun. So there's good schools, there's good places to learn. We have the prestigious IITs and IIMs. Even in the school age, there's all sorts of beautiful private schools. But then they're restricted to a very small population of the country. And when we talk about India, if you're talking 1% is making IITs and IIMs, then 99% is millions and millions of people who are going nowhere. And then there's the whole situation of dropouts. About 80% people drop out after 12th grade. You won't see that in the cities that much. You'll see that in all of the rural areas. Now, what does this do to a country like India? I mean, for India, the most precious resource that we have are people. And we have about 60% people in the youth category, which is amazing. Not many countries can boast of that. But what are we doing with this population? We are pushing them through a fixated system of education, training them to do very specific things in life, and then we expect that there's going to be innovation all around us. It doesn't work that way, does it? So we cannot afford to lose minds to a regressive system of education. And who will solve India's problems? If it's not the youth, it's not people who innovate to solve our problems, nobody from outside is going to come and solve our problems. And the most common thing I hear these days is that you cannot change the world in a day, right? And I'm sure a lot of you must have heard the same thing all over again. My only response to that is, of course, we cannot change the world in a day because there's not enough people to do it. There's not enough people actually trying to make any kind of change. There's more people just saying these words that you cannot change the world. So these are some of the questions that I had. I meet very interesting people very regularly, and people doing startups, people doing amazing social work. And all the time I ask them that, what is it that got you to do this? I never got an answer that said, I was inspired by my education. I learned this in school. It was always somewhere outside. It was always an external inspiration. The school did not really help me, is what they say. Then, shouldn't education provide you with tools that empower you to chase your dreams besides theoretical learning? To me, it seems kind of obvious that if you're going through years and years of education, it should be the one that makes you confident, that gives you all the tools that you need so that you can succeed in future. Why can't we have a system that is uncomfortable, that pushes us to the limits, helps us develop creative thinking? Why can't we solve our own problems? The comfortable system of anything is, in my opinion, very regressive. Our education does not push us. It does not require us to go out there and find knowledge for ourselves. Why should we depend on teachers and schools for learning? Right? If we get bad teachers, then they're screwed. Right? You cannot do much then. And why can't we mean anybody and everybody? Why does good education go only to a select few, and then there's majority who cannot afford it? Hence, this is what I've come up with until now, is that this system is very, very unsustainable. It is sort of like a bad relationship, which is getting messed up, but you don't just leave because you're too used to it. my simple idea to it is, why can't we just go ahead and change it? Why do we have to try to morph it a little bit or supplement it? Why can't we just have a completely different system? Why do we have to have teachers? Why do we have to follow whatever has been done until now for years and years together? Just because it's been done for so long doesn't mean it's right. Okay, so coming to what I do. Before I start with that, I need you to understand two very core ideas, the two things that fascinate me the most. One of them is the maker culture and maker spaces. The maker culture is this fast-growing movement, which advocates that you try and solve your own problems and build things with your own hands. Do not rely on things that are already available or that you have to buy. Go ahead and break things and make things. And then maker spaces complements that with providing a space where you can actually do it. So maker spaces are like community labs where people can become members or join, and there's all the tools that an individual could not possess, but the community can still get it. And they can work together. So this photo is actually of the center, a very messy photo actually, but this is where in Banjarpalia, where we have all the tools at the back and the tables and the computers in the front, and people just learning whatever they want to learn. The other is OERs, or online education resources. I feel that this is the best time to be able to let go of traditional systems, because almost everything that you want to learn can be learned from the internet. And there's amazing teachers all around the world that are ready to give courses out for free. And you just need an internet connection and computers. So, yeah. Unfortunately, neither of these are accessible to villages. You will see certain maker spaces coming up around, even in Bangalore, and of course almost everybody has a computer and internet in the city, but not at all in the villages. Nobody's even thinking about getting a maker space in villages. So yeah, this is basically the simplest way I can explain what I do. Is I just make maker spaces in villages. I put a few computers, I get internet, and there's prototyping tools, there's things you can do with electronics, there's all sorts of hand and machine tools, and people are allowed to play with it. They find cool things on the internet, they build it, it breaks, they fail, they rebuild it, they come up with their own designs, and then when they feel that gap, that there's something that they do not know, they try to search for information. And it is that point that the information is actually gathered and not given for free. And they can never forget that. And in the whole process, they learn English really, really fast. So I did not have too many pictures to show for today, so I thought we'll do a live Skype. I hope my internet does not give it. It's not showing. Yeah, let's start. So this is my student. And the person from the village who's actually now taking care of the center. The video is really blurry, but I hope you can make some sense of it. So these are students from all around. This is a new place that we have moved into, and the computers are all there. That just finding stuff, looking at us right now. Yeah, and he'll probably show you the insides where the tools and equipment is all kept. So none of the two students are actually asked to do the same things. In fact, nobody is asked to do anything. I'm here and they're there, and they're pretty much finding things that they want to learn on their own. And then they find things that the other students are interested in. They make teams, and they build stuff, and then they build new things. So yeah, it is pretty self-sustained in its operation that way. So this is our tools board, where most of your hand tools and the 3D printer and some other things are kept. Yeah, I think that's enough. So yeah, this is a very small explanation of the big thing that is going on in my mind. It's very difficult to explain in 15 minutes. But if anytime any of you want to check out the space or help in any other way, you're welcome to come over and see things happening live. When you see things that happen there, it's kind of unbelievable that actually nobody is telling them to do the things that they're doing. People are making Iron Man masks, Wolverine claws. They're making boats that run on motors and controlled by Arduino. And these are 12-year-old kids who can now program Arduinos, and I never taught them. So yeah, there's really cool things to see there. With that, I think I'll end my presentation. Yeah, thank you.